Hello, my name is Gerardo Ramirez in the Fairport Compliance Division at the Texas Education Agency. This presentation will provide a basic overview of the Title I Part D program. This presentation provides general program information and should not be used as an all-inclusive overview of all Title I Part D statutory requirements in the Every Student Succeeds Act, referred to as ESSA in the presentation. Legal disclaimer. This presentation is intended for informational and guidance purposes only. The content in this presentation reflects the Texas Education Agency's current understanding of statute and applicable federal guidance and is subject to change. This presentation does not constitute legal advice. Entities are advised to consult with their own legal counsel before taking any action based on the information and guidance provided herein. This presentation is copyrighted by TEA, can only be used, copied, reproduced, or shared for educational, non-commercial use. You may not distribute, alter, or partial copies of this content. You may not charge for the reproduced materials or any document containing them except to cover the cost of reproduction and distribution. Reproduced content must be marked with the following notice: copyright, year presentation created, Texas Education Agency, all rights reserved, used by permission. For more information, email copyrights@ta.texas.gov. Legal disclaimer: Artificial intelligence. TEA prohibits third-party recordings of its grants-related trainings. This prohibition includes the use of artificial intelligence (AI) services, summary services, language models, applications, interfaces, or assistants to attend, review, or record trainings. TEA further prohibits attendees from using the information in its grants-related trainings to train AI technologies. Any attendee who violates these prohibitions may be removed from the trainings and barred from future grants-related trainings. The Title I Part D statute is located in Section 1401 of the Elementary and Secondary Act, SEA, as amended in 2015. This statute outlines the program authorization purposes, grant eligibility, application requirements, appropriate uses of funds, reporting requirements, and other program details. It also establishes the three subparts of the program. Subparts 1 and 2 establish the prevention and intervention programs for children and youth who are neglected, delinquent, or at risk. This law provides supplemental funding to state and local education agencies as part of the Elementary and Secondary Act, as amended by the Every Student Succeeds Act. Subpart 3 establishes program evaluations that must be conducted for any programs under Subpart 1 and 2. These funds are dedicated to improving educational services to children in facilities for the neglected or delinquent. The goal is to enable program recipients to meet the same student performance standards that all children in the state are expected to meet. Improved academic performance will facilitate the transition of students from correctional programs to further education or employment. There are three purposes of the Title I Part D Subpart 1 program laid out in Section 1401 of the ESSA statute. One is to improve educational services for children and youth in local and tribal state institutions for neglected or delinquent children and youth so that such children and youth have the opportunity to meet the same challenging state academic standards that all children in the state are expected to meet. Then is to provide such children and youth with the services needed to make a successful transition from institutionalization to further schooling or employment, and to prevent at-risk youth from dropping out of school, and to provide dropouts and children and youth returning from correctional facilities or institutions for neglected or delinquent children and youth with a support system to ensure the continued education and the involvement of their families and communities. Now, let's go over the Title I Part D Subpart 1 requirements. Let's start with requirement 1 through 5. Number 1. Provide a description of the procedures to be used to assess the educational needs of the children to be served and, to the extent practicable, provide such assessment upon entry into a correctional facility. 2. Provide an assurance of prioritizing services to children and youth who are likely to complete incarceration within a 2-year period. 3. Provide a description of the program with annual updates to the state education agency. 4. Provide a description of how the program will meet the goals and objectives of the state plan. 5. Provide a description of how the state agency will consult with experts and provide training for appropriate staff to ensure that the planning and operation of institution-wide projects under Section 1416 are of high quality. Now let's cover requirements 6 through 9. 6. Provide a description how the state agency will use the results of the most recent evaluation under Section 8601 will be used to plan and improve the program. 7. Provide data demonstrating that the state agency has maintained the fiscal effort required of a local education agency in accordance with Section 8521. 8. Provide a description on how the programs will be coordinated with other appropriate state and federal programs, such as those under Title I of Public Law 105 through 220, CTE programs, state and local dropout prevention programs, and special education programs. 9. Provide a description on how the state agency will encourage facilities receiving funds under this subpart to coordinate with LEAs or alternative education programs to ensure student records be shared in order to facilitate transition of such children between the facility and the LEA or alternative education program. 10. Provide a description on how appropriate professional development will be provided to teachers and other staff. 11. Designate an individual in each correctional facility or institution for neglected or delinquent children and youth to be responsible for issues relating to transition for such children and youth between facility or institution and locally operated programs. 12. Provide a description on how the state agency will coordinate with businesses for training and mentoring for children and youth. 13. Provide an assurance that the state agency will assist in locating alternative programs through which students can continue their education if the students are not returning to school after leaving the correctional facility or institution. 14. Provide an assurance that the state agency will work with parents. 15. Provide an assurance that the state agency will work with children and youth with disabilities and assures that the agency will notify the child's or youth's local school if the child or youth is identified as in need of special education services while the child or youth is in the correctional facility or institution and intends to return to the local school. 16. Provide an assurance that the state agency will work with children and youth who dropped out of school before entering the correctional facility or institution and encourage the children and youth to re-enter school and attain regular high school diploma once the term of the cancellation is completed, or provide them with the skills necessary to gain employment, continue education, or achieve a secondary school diploma or is recognized equivalent if the child or youth does not intend to return to school. 17. Provide an assurance that certified or licensed teachers and other qualified staff are trained to work with children and youth with disabilities and other students with special needs. 18. Provide a description of any additional services to be provided to children and youth, such as career counseling, distance learning, and assistance in securing student loans and grants. 19. Provide an assurance that the program will be coordinated with any programs operated under the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act of 1974 or other comparable programs, if applicable. And 20. Provide a description of how the state agency will, to the extent feasible, note when a youth has come into contact with both the child welfare and juvenile justice systems and deliver services and interventions designed to keep such youth in school that are evidence-based. There are three types of facilities served under Title I Part D, Subpart 1. Adult correctional institutions, which is a facility in which persons under the age of 21 are confined as a result of a criminal offense conviction. A neglected institution is a facility, either public or private, other than a foster home, that is operated for the care of children who have been committed or placed by state law due to abandonment, neglect, or death of parents, guardians. A delinquent institution is a facility, either public or private, other than a foster home, that is for the care of children who have been adjudicated to be delinquent or in need of supervision. Now we will cover eligibility for Title I Part D. A state agency is eligible for if the agency is responsible for providing free public education for children and youth, and institutions for neglected or delinquent children and youth, attending community day programs for neglected or delinquent children and youth, or are in adult correctional institutions. In Texas, we have two state agencies that are defined as eligible: the Texas Juvenile Justice Department and Windham School District. By now, you have heard mentioning of neglected and delinquent multiple times. Before we go any further, let's take a look at the definition of each term. The official definition of neglected student is a child, youth, or student who has been committed to an institution other than a foster home or voluntarily placed under applicable state law due to abandonment, neglect, or death of his or her parents or guardians. The official definition of delinquent is a child, youth, or student who resides in a public or private residential facility other than a foster home that is operated for the care of children and youth who have been adjudicated delinquent or in need of supervision. The state agency will make the decision of what youth is being served and what is being documented. The Texas Education Agency is in charge of conducting compliance monitoring every year. Compliance monitoring occurs in a three-step process. The U.S. Department of Education monitors the state, TEA will monitor the state agency, and the state agency monitors the facility. Keep in mind that since the state agency is the one receiving the funding, they are the ones responsible for the appropriate implementation of the program. Upon certification and submission of the ESTA Consolidated Federal Grant application, state agencies certify that they will comply with all requirements noted in statute. All requirements can be found in the program-specific provisions and assurances posted on the TEA Grant Opportunities page. For a link to the program-specific provisions and assurances, search by the grant application name and review the information located in the application and support information section. To monitor the compliance of each eligible entity receiving ESSA funds, the state conducts a once every 3 years monitoring process for state agencies. The program management validation process for state agencies addresses statutory requirements based on program implementation and effectiveness. During the monitoring process, the state asks state agencies to submit documentation for the program compliance requirements. TEA reviews the documentation to determine if the subgrantee met the statutory requirements as noted in the monitoring guidance documents. The Federal Fiscal Monitoring Division is responsible for monitoring the expenditures of federal grant subrecipients to ensure federal funds are used for authorized purposes in compliance with federal statutes, regulations, and the terms and conditions of federal awards. The ESA Consolidated Compliance Report is completed by state agencies annually to document that they have complied with the program-specific provisions and assurances in the preceding application year. State agencies are responsible for indicating the sources of documentation used to establish compliance. The documentation is to remain on file at the state agency. However, it must be readily available upon request from the Texas Education Agency for audit and/or validation monitoring purposes. The ESA Consolidation Compliance Report will assess specific statutory requirements. Title I Part D Subpart 1 allocation of funds are allocated to state agencies serving neglected and delinquent populations. Each calendar year, two state-defined special LEAs, the Texas Juvenile Justice Department and Windham School District, report enrollments to the eGrants SC 9010 Survey of Children in State Agency Facilities for Neglected or Delinquent Children, Adult Correctional Facilities, or Community Day Programs for Neglected or Delinquent Children data collection. This data is subsequently sent to USDE and utilized by USDE formulas when determining Title I Part D Subpart 1 formula-based allocations to states. More details on the process of determining LEA allocation may be found in the ESA Funding Formulas Reference Manual that is available in the Handbooks and Other Guidance section of TA's Finance and Grants website. Enrollment counts are aggregated at the state level, create a statewide per pupil amount from the Title I Part D Subpart 1 grant awarded to Texas. The Texas Juvenile Justice Department and Windham grant amounts equals the reported enrollment counts times the per pupil amount. Entitlement amounts for the current school year for this and other grants are available in eGrants Administration Division webpage. Title I Part D Subpart 1 is found in the ESA Consolidated Final Amounts by LEA. We will now cover some use of funds. When determining allowable use of funds, the state agency is responsible to make sure that is reasonable and necessary, reviews the comprehensive needs assessment, looks at the evaluation of student achievement. Furthermore, when determining allowable uses of funds, always keep in mind EDGAR requirements as well as local policies and procedures. Here are some of the recommended uses of funds on the Title I Part D Subpart 1 ESA Statute 1415. State agencies may use these funds for concentrate on providing participants with the knowledge and skills needed to make successful transition to secondary school completion, career and technical education, further education, or employment. It may include the acquisition of equipment, pay for success initiatives, or providing targeted services for youth who have come in contact with both the child welfare system and the juvenile justice system. Shall be designed to support education services that are provided to children and youth identified by the state agency as failing or most at risk of failing to meet the challenging state academic standards. Respond to the educational needs of such children and youth, including by supplementing and improving the quality of the educational services provided to such children and youth by the state agency, and affords the children and youth an opportunity to meet the challenging state academic standards. One of the allowable uses of funds is to use funds for Pay for Success initiative. The question that comes often is, what is a Pay for Success initiative? This initiative is a performance-based grant, contract, or cooperative agreement awarded by a public entity in which a commitment is made to pay for improved outcomes that result in social benefit and direct cost savings or cost avoidance to the public sector. Transition services is considered an allowable use of funds. Each state agency shall reserve not less than 15% and not more than 30% of the Title I Part D Subpart 1 award it receives for this purpose. Funds reserved under this may be used for projects that facilitate transition between institutions operated by state agencies and LEAs. Transition services support the successful reentry of youth offenders who are age 20 or younger and have received a regular high school diploma or its equivalent into post-secondary education or career and technical training programs through strategies for exposure to and preparation for programs and services, such as programs allowing youth to audit or attend college, university, or community college campuses through programs provided in institutional settings. Essential support services to ensure access. What classifies as essential support services to ensure access? These include personal, career, and technical and academic counseling, placement services designed to place the youth in a university, college, or junior college program, information concerning and assistance in obtaining available student financial aid, counseling services, and job placement services. Now, let's go over institution-wide projects. A state agency that provides free public education for children and youth in an institution for neglected or delinquent children and youth other than an adult correctional institution, or attending a community day program for such children and youth may use funds received under this subpart to serve all children in and upgrade the entire educational effort of that institution or program if the state agency has developed and the state education agency has approved a comprehensive plan for that institution or program. Such comprehensive plan provides for a comprehensive assessment of the educational needs of all children and youth, provides for a comprehensive assessment of the educational needs of youth aged 20 and younger in adult facilities who are expected to complete the incarceration within a 2-year period, describes the steps the state agency has taken or will take to provide all children and youth under age 21 with the opportunity to meet the challenging state academic standards in order to improve the likelihood that the youth will attain a regular high school diploma or equivalent or find employment after leaving the institution. It describes the instructional program, specialized instruction support services, and procedures, including to the extent feasible, the provision of mentors for the youth and how relevant and appropriate academic records and plans regarding the continuation of educational services are shared to facilitate transition. It specifically describes how funds will be used. It describes measures and procedures that will be used to assess and improve student achievement. It describes how the agency has planned or will implement and evaluate the program, with personnel providing direct instruction services and support services in such institutions and with TEA. It includes an assurance that the state agency has provided for appropriate training for teachers and other instructional and administrative personnel to enable such to carry out the project effectively. Now we will go over program evaluation. As mentioned previously, Subpart 3 establishes a program evaluation for Subpart 1 and Subpart 2. In conducting each evaluation under Section 1431A, state agencies shall use multiple and appropriate measures of student progress. Each state agency shall submit evaluation results to TEA, use the results of evaluations to plan and improve subsequent programs for participating children and youth. Section 1431 mentions 5 different impact areas that must be considered in the program evaluation that takes place once every 3 years. These are youth who have maintained and improved education achievement and graduated from high school, youth who have accrued school credits that meet state requirements for grade promotion and high school graduation, youth who have made a transition to a regular program or other educational program operated by a state agency, youth who have completed high school or its equivalent and obtained employment after leaving the facility, and youth who have participated in post-secondary education and/or job training programs. Now let's go over some available resources. The National Technical Assistance Center houses several guidance tools that may be of benefit for state agencies to use. State agencies may visit the NDTAC website for more information. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you have any questions, please reach out to the contact information listed.